Hello, everyone. Mark Donaldson alongside Janusz Mihalik, and let's recap what we have seen so far in the Premier League. The runaway champions, Arsenal. No, there's 3 points separating the top three. Aston Villa beating Arsenal with Buendia's late winner earlier today. Then Manchester City comfortable in their victory over Sunderland. Janusz Mihalik, what on earth have we seen? We have a title race again in the space of a few hours.
Yes, we do. And I think, Manchester City in particular, sense that there's an opportunity, right? Everybody, I suppose. So we're going to be talking about Chelsea as well. They did not take advantage of that. But for Manchester City, I think this was an important game, right? Considering what has happened to them in the last two games. And obviously they've won them both. But if you look at Fulham leading 5-1, and then conceding goals 5-4. Then Leeds United game. Remember Phil Foden scoring a very, very late 3-2 win. So I think the stability defensively was going to be important, and today they delivered at both ends.
Mm-hmm. Would you say the clean sheet for Pep is just as important as the 3 points today, given what you've just said?
I think so. I mean, that's the impression that I've gotten, right? I mean, if you look at Manchester City at their best, I mean, they're doing what they've done in the past. I mean, they've scored more goals than anybody else in the league, 3 more today. So that hasn't been an issue, of course. It's not just Erling Haaland, but, people are contributing to that. But, I was going to look, I think 16 goals conceded. At no point, if you remember City at their best, they were conceding that much. And part of it was, I think, the possession game that they've had. They rest with the ball, don't they? And because they have so much possession and, obviously they weren't conceding. But this season, obviously, that has been an issue.
Before we get to the City goals in their 3-0 win over Sunderland, they went with kind of Doku coming in off the left in support of Haaland and Ryan Cherki coming in off the right-hand side. They're yet to find what they really are looking for, Pep Guardiola, with a front three or a front four. Phil Foden, of course, playing the kind of 10 role. What did you make of Cherki's performance today?
Well, I mean, we've seen glimpses, right, of how good he is and why Manchester City got him. And remember, a few weeks ago, Pep Guardiola was talking about him, how good he is, his type of player, of course, his intelligence, and not just the quality. That's for everyone to see. And we can look at the Rabona assist today, and that was absolutely wonderful on that goal. But I don't know if you remember a few minutes earlier when Erling Haaland, I think. His save, his shot was blocked by Gertruda, and Cherki's work on the right hand side, where he's just skipping through people, getting to the byline, and delivered that pass to Haaland. That to me was actually even better than the assist for the goal as well. So we see that because he loves to play between the lines, just so much quality. I just guess that you need that from him more consistently, right? He's got to be doing that game in and game out.
No goals in the first half hour, and you're thinking, will it be another one of those days for City? Sunderland were stubborn. They'd given up 1 or 2 chances. Erling Haaland, though, they marshalled him pretty well. But then 2 goals in 5 minutes from the 2 centre-backs. Very different goals from Ruben Dias and Josep Guardiola. That was the game pretty much over and done there. But if your strikers aren't getting the service or they're unable to breach the back line, it helps when you've got an absolute peach from Ruben Dias and then a decent effort from Guardiola.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch that whole situation on Ruben Dias, patient build up, right? I mean, the first half wasn't all that exciting for sure, and that particular play was kind of slow in the build up, and it almost was screaming for a screamer. Apologies here for that, because there's such a low block from Sunderland on that play, and I'll tell you what, I mean. Technically beautiful strike and help because there was a little bit of a deflection there, right? The goalkeeper got to it as well, but I think that deflection helped. But what a wonderful strike, and that's exactly what you need to do. I think Manchester City doesn't do that enough from distance. Of course, Rodri was the one that would do it. He is not playing at this moment, but Ruben Dias, you have to do it. And the second one, just a powerful header from Joško Gvardiol. I mean, all by himself is, rising above everybody there. Just a great header.
Look at how many players are involved in this goal. Number 10 is Ryan Cherki, who takes the ball from Foden before giving it wide to Doku, before getting it back, before laying it off. Not quite as far out as Vincent Kompany at the other end back in the day with that unbelievable goal. But the one thing to note as well about Cherki is he was involved in his own half in the build-up, and that's a goal with the involvement of so many that will really please Pep.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Cherky, you look at Foden. I mean, the beauty of Manchester City now or before is that they have playmakers everywhere, right? We often talk about playmaker in the center of the pitch, but they do that in the wide areas, and that they have the freedom, of course, to interchange, to change positions. That's nothing new from Pep Guardiola and Manchester City, and he's the one that loves to play between the line. They've had so many of them in the past, so that's his position. But I'm glad to see that graphic, because that setup was kind of so slow. And I was like, part of me, Mario, was like, yeah, nothing's going to happen there. And all of a sudden, Ruben Dias gets the ball and made the right decision.
What about Cherki's Rabona? That's going to get the headlines for Phil Foden's header. But the third goal puts the game well beyond any doubt. Foden's in a bit of form right now that, look, I'm sure that will be discussed. Should he start for England or whatever? But from a Manchester City perspective, why are we getting this Phil Foden now with the goals and the assists? And there's his stats from today's game. And why didn't we get that when he was playing earlier this season?
Well, I mean, he took a season off last season, if you remember. I mean, we're talking about player of the year a couple of years ago, right? And then remember England in the last European Championships. I mean, they've gotten to the final, but it was poor from everybody, really, from England. And Phil Foden, I think, paid the price for that. Last season, and finally he's just recovering the form that he's had. So sometimes that happens. Let's not forget, I mean, Manchester City season last year was poor. It's a turnover. We're wondering if Pep Guardiola is going to stay with Manchester City. Is he done? Is the magic gone and all of that? It was poor. So I don't know if I just put it on Foden, because just about everybody last season in Manchester City were playing below their level. So I wouldn't single him out in that, but I think 2 years ago we saw how good he can be, and I think he's just coming into form right now.
Can he be that good again?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's in the right system. He's playing under the right coach. Remember, I mean, when he first came on the scene, Pep Guardiola, talking about him being better than Messi, if I remember correctly, right? Or more talented at that time. And yeah, I have no doubt. I mean, he's showing it right now. So I think he's going to have a great season. In terms of England, of course, that's a little bit later. The competition there is great. And at the moment, he's going to have to continue to play like this for Thomas Tuchel to give him a look.
Sunderland went to Liverpool during the week and they drew 1-1. And one of the stories was coming off the bench, Luke O'Nien, who's been out forever with injury, and he was one of the stars of the Sunderland Till I Die TV show. And he bleeds for that football club. He said it was the highlight of his life so far, to play against Liverpool, to make his Premier League debut. And he was asked about coming up, Newcastle at home and everything like that, and he said that's going to be so good as well. He's now suspended. He was sent off. The card was upgraded to a red, with a challenge in stoppage time. Stupid. But it just shows you, doesn't it, when things can be going no better for Sunderland, a draw at Liverpool, and he comes on, makes his Premier League debut. He's looking ahead to the big return of the Sunderland against Newcastle game, and he goes and does that, and he'll be watching from the stands again. Janusz may have dropped out for a second, so I will not answer my own question, because the question lasted 2.5 minutes. So I'm sure I answered and asked the same question. Let's move on to Bournemouth against Chelsea. A goalless draw in this one. Bournemouth thought they'd taken the lead in the first half just by magic. He presses a button and back he comes. Talking about
Gremlins.
No, you just fell asleep, because it wasn't even a question. It just rambled on about Luke O'Nien. So I've answered my own statement, and we've moved on to Bournemouth against Chelsea being 0-0.
I was
Offside in the
wondering where you were
build-up.
going with that.
And I didn't know. I was halfway through, and I thought, I can't get out of this one. Here's the stats. Thank you, Sam. That's extricated me from a big hole. 24 shots and no goals. It wasn't a bad game to watch. Bournemouth thought they'd taken the lead, but on the offside, thanks to VAR, eventually in the first half, denying Semenyo what would have been a first goal in a while.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is, I think, a little worrisome a little bit from Chelsea, right? Because I mean, in the first half, they didn't have the shot on target. I think it came right after halftime, and if you look at Bournemouth, not only their XG, and I don't very often go into that, but they've had a number of chances. Semenyo, wonderful once again. I mean, so many chances by himself. He created for others as well. And think about, I'm sure you saw that chance that Evanilson somehow missed. After Semenyo beat Gusto on the left-hand side. So, look, after losing to Leeds for Chelsea, as we mentioned before, with Arsenal dropping points, this was a great opportunity. And okay, we can say that Chelsea are probably not ready just yet to be Premier League champions, and that's probably fair to say. They're young, that process is still ongoing, of course, and a massive rotation for them from game to game as well. But when you have an opportunity to get closer to Arsenal, this is the moment. So for them to miss that opportunity, it's worrisome. Two games like that, they didn't look good at all today.
Yeah, right at the start, I said 3 points separate the top three. If Chelsea had won at Leeds and won at Bournemouth, 3 points would separate the top four. They'd be on 30 points. I know you've spoken about them being young, but they've got talented players. Cole Palmer's back. It will take a little bit of time for him to find his feet again. But you can't have that inconsistency when you've got that talent available to you. So what's the next step? How do you get that consistency if you're Chelsea?
Yeah, Chelsea for me are difficult because I mean, I don't necessarily know or understand if there's a style of play with them right now, right? I mean, if you had to pick something that they do consistently well, I don't know what that may be. I worry a little bit in terms of finishing because, who's their number 9, truly, right? Liam Delap obviously has been injured, got injured today in the game as well. He's got some suspension, silly suspension as well. So he's out. João Pedro, if you remember, preseason Club World Cup came on the scene for Chelsea. Wonderful, right? And he's been off form now for a long, long time. Mark Guiu, I mean, coming off the bench, not much today. It almost, if you remember, Pedro Neto, who's been, I think, one of the most consistent players, if not the best player that Chelsea has had this season. Maybe he was their best number 9 in that game against Barcelona in the Champions League. He was absolutely wonderful playing the false 9 right now. So, I'm not saying that this is their massive problem, but given the players that I've mentioned that they've gotten, and number 9 was very, very important for them, today was an example of all of them misfiring.
You see, you don't know if that's the biggest problem. It's certainly one of them, and you're right to bring it up. And I was watching this game, and there was this battle between Senesi, the Bournemouth defender, and Liam Delap, and they were at each other's throats for the first half hour. And then they went up for a challenge, and he came down, Senesi, on Liam Delap, and I don't know what he's done to his shoulder, but he had to go off. Guiu came on. Is he just struck by bad luck all the time? Because if he gets a run of games, then they might have solved their number 9 issue, but he just can't seem to do that right now.
Yeah, little silliness, as I mentioned, right? The suspension that even as can't remember the game now, but Maresca wasn't very happy about that, just coming back. He's had some injuries. Again, just like João Pedro, when he came in, in the summer Club World Cup once again, he was the sort of player that almost everything that he touched was either a goal or something good came of it. So, he is an important player, and right now that rotation is gonna continue, I suppose. So they felt that they fixed the problem that they perceived that they had in the offseason, and right now it's I'll tell you what, I mean, João Pedro is going to have to come into form very, very quickly.
Friend of mine who used to play international football for Australia and suffered with injuries said, for every month you've been out, you kind of need another week after you slowly get back to full fitness. Cole Palmer was replaced just before the hour mark. When do you think we will see Cole Palmer firing on full cylinders, given the amount of time that he's missed because of injury?
Yeah, it usually takes some time, but I wouldn't worry about a player like Cole Palmer, right? Because he's such a technical player, a touch player that I call. The more he gets, into the game, and he's always going to get the touches on the ball, that comes back quickly, right? I mean, in terms of fitness, I think he's okay. He's not the player that's, that they depend on, going from box to box. So I think for him, it's just to get that momentum and just being comfortable on the ball. And in order to do that, He's going to have a lot of it. They're going to find him because he's got that creativity, of course, as well. So I think the more he gets the touches, which I expect to be every game, I think he's going to come back quickly to the level that we've seen before.
Last word on Chelsea. Given the week that they've had and the points that they have dropped, what's a good season for them?
Well, I mean, Champions League, they have to be there. I mean, with the money, everybody's spending money right now, but turnover, I mean, number of players over the last 2 or 3 seasons, they have, at Chelsea or players that have been loaned out. This is nothing new with Chelsea. Obviously, they've committed to young players. They continue to look for more. Look, I mean, they have to be in the top 4. I mean, that's what it's all about. When you talk about Premier League, you're outside of it. As you've mentioned to me, I mean, this season, there's a possibility of more teams making it, right? The 5th, maybe even 6th team, but absolutely have to be there. And I don't know if that's just enough, right? Because if you need to show progress in this one, you'd like to think that Chelsea are going to be there or thereabout of the top 2, maybe, right? Points are important sometimes. You want to finish first. If you miss it by point or 2, it makes no difference. But I think psychologically, for Chelsea, their hierarchy, for the players as well, that progress, sort of what we've seen from Arsenal in the last few years, right? I mean, twice finishing 8th and kind of moving up, and they're at the top of the table. I think that Chelsea would expect the same.
Spurs have won at home in the Premier League for the first time since the opening day against Burnley. They beat Brentford by 2-0. I was going to ask, which Spurs did we see today? There's your stats. 15 shots, 7 of them on target, 2 goals. It was convincing enough. Was it effective as well?
Well, I mean, the most important thing is that they've won a game and they've done it at home, right? I mean, going into this game, they didn't win in 5 games, I think, in all competitions. So a lot of pressure on Thomas Frank, and mostly because of what they didn't do at home. So I think when you're under pressure, defense are on your back. A win is a win anywhere, but I think doing it in this way, because they dominated, right, is a massive bonus. Xavi Simons, another, just like Thomas Frank, under pressure as well. Great assist, a goal. So maybe this is a catalyst. Maybe this is a start they needed, because when you look at them going forward, they have a lot. But just if you look at Kudus, Richarlison's been scoring as of late, so that's another bonus. I think you want Kudus to maybe do more of that, right? Scored today, but obviously the goal was disallowed. So Kolo Muani, another player that I think we expected to do much better. Had those 2 goals and an assist, if I remember, against PSG, his team, right, former team. So there is enough, but there was unbelievable amount of pressure on Thomas Frank, simply because there's always that: is he good enough for a big club like Spurs, right? When you come from from a smaller club, there's always that question. So look, clean sheet, a win. It almost doesn't matter how they've won it, but they needed that win badly, especially at home.
I'm just looking at the table. There's 5 points between Chelsea in 4th and Bournemouth in 13th. Spurs are kind of middle of the pack with 22 points, which is to be expected when you haven't won a home game in the league since the opening day of the season. It's not just Xavi Simons himself that's responsible, of course not, because he hasn't played to the form that you and I know that when we saw in the Bundesliga. But today wasn't a shock. That we know he's capable of doing that. Could this be the springboard now for Xavi Simons? Because he's a brilliant player. He's just taking a wee bit of time to get going.
Yeah, I mean, I watched him, as recently, a couple of times when he played for Holland against Poland, and he struggles for his country as well. I think positioning is a little bit of a question mark. I know for Holland it is, because Ronald Koeman often used to play him in a wide area, which is not where he feels comfortable. More central, I think we see that, and today he saw a lot of space. That's that well. That's when he's at his best, when he has space in front of him to run. And that goal, not only did he win the ball on the halfway line, but then of course his acceleration, his pace, and So look, I mean, he's going to have to do a lot of that, I suppose, because I think in a way he's that creative engine of that team. I've mentioned a lot of players, the strikers like Richarlison, Colomwani, or Kudus in a wide area, but you need in that midfield somebody of that ilk, because obviously if it's Palhinha, if it's Bentancur, if it's Bergwall, they have I don't want to call them defensive players, but in the center of the pitch, I mean, I can't think of anybody else. Madison is out, so obviously that was a big loss, and he needed to take over. And today, it almost felt like that was his game. He took over, and he ran the team today.
Mm-hmm. So 2-0 win for Spurs, looking at their fixtures coming up, and it's impossible to predict because they lose at home to Fulham and then they win games they're not expected to. But they've got Forest, they've got Liverpool, they've got Palace, Brentford, Sunderland at home, Bournemouth and West Ham before the Champions League returns in the middle of January. Same question to you with regards to Spurs than I gave you with Chelsea. What's a good season right now for Spurs come the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned how tight it is, right? It's going to change. It's going to be one of those seasons, I think, that we're going to see it until the end. I don't think anybody's going to run away with it for sure. So, yeah, I mean, it's a massive club. So again, when you talk about Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, I mean, they have to be in the Champions League if they want to continue to grow, if they want to continue, I don't want to say dominate in Europe, but, be within a shout of the Champions League and perhaps winning that trophy. And, that's what Spurs want, right? I mean, we don't have Daniel Levy to go after anymore, right? Because that was always comfortable for us when Spurs didn't play well to look at him. So at some stage, Spurs have to deliver. This is not the season, I don't think. They're looking at them, probably not good enough to challenge, but certainly good enough to be in the Champions League spots.
Going to wrap up with the remainder of the games that kicked off at 3 p.m. in England, 10 a.m. over here on the in the east coast of the US. But I wouldn't mind if producer Sam could put the top 6 graphic up again, because there's one team in particular, that team in 5th, Everton, after a 3-0 win today over Nottingham Forest, find themselves within one place of a Champions League spot. And given England's record in Europe, which is likely to continue this season, 5th could be an automatic Champions League spot. Are Everton fans starting to dream, Janusz?
I think so. I was hoping that you weren't going to do that to me with Everton. I mean, I didn't watch the game, but not because of that. Because as you know, I've been in the past very critical. Well, not very, but I was critical of Davy Moyes, and I feel like I have to apologize to him every time you mention them. And fair play to them, because I remember when he was at Everton first time. Remember, he couldn't spend anything. It was one season. He spent like I don't know, 2 million or something, and still had a good season. But he always felt like, is there more to Davy Moyes, right? Even Everton fans, I think, at that time were wondering, can he take us to that next level of playing, right? Going to West Ham, I felt the same, but then all of a sudden he wins a trophy, right? And they're doing well. So I sort of have given up on Davy Moyes as a manager that can maybe take teams to that next level. And of course, I was absolutely wrong about that. And he continues to prove me wrong. So didn't watch the game today, but obviously an easy win. And yeah, I mean, look where they are. Getting a nosebleed.
Newcastle. There. Yeah, they are. Great. 5th place in the new stadium as well. Everything going well for Everton after an inconsistent start to the season. But look, Aston Villa's start to the season and look at where they are. Now, the final game of the 3 p.m. England time kickoffs was Newcastle 2, Burnley 1. Bruno Guimaraes scoring direct from a corner, which I believe is only the 20th time that has happened in the Premier League. First time Newcastle have done so. Anthony Gordon with a penalty in first half stoppage time. Guimaraes no longer takes them. Some people thought Voltemada would, but it was Anthony Gordon who scored. Burnley very late on, Zion Fleming in stoppage time. I know you've watched 4 games already, so I'm not going to ask you about this one. All I will say is there's still plenty more action to come later today. Who do we have coming up next? Leeds against Liverpool. Full reaction with Dan and yourself on ESPN FC YouTube. Bye for now.